Good day, all target lifers and the parents. I'm glad to be able to speak to you, even if it's only over a video. What a significant time that we're living in. It's quite something different. I think we're part of a bit of history over here. I would like to give you some information because I know everybody is wondering what's going to happen with Target Life after the lockdown, and I can't give you accurate information at this stage because obviously our government must still tell us exactly when the lockdown's going to end and what the rules will be then. So I'm going to sketch some scenarios and we'll look into possibilities. I'm very positive at this stage that we're still going to have a good Target Life here, and a lot of parents have been calling me or asking, but what about some internet-based teaching and so on? And I'll tell you just now why I've decided against it so far. We might get to it if the lockdown will be extended, but hopefully it won't. The situation is quite complex. I've been studying and investigating and doing research on this whole corona thing and all the decisions being made, and obviously I have my opinions and we might not all agree on some of the things I will be saying, but one thing is for sure: we're all bound to this lockdown and we don't have much of a choice, and we really must make the best of the situation. And I really hope that it's going well with you at home. I realize for myself it's really, I hate being alone, but still I can make choices to make it better for myself or not. And I've been busy exercising, doing a lot of research, watching a lot of videos, building radio control plane for my son with what we have at home and things like that. So working in the garden. Yes, I've been busy, and I'm in good spirits, and I hope you are as well. There's a bad thing that happened, but there's a lot of good that can come from it. And I'm going to look realistically, logically to the side of the pandemic and the problems that it brought with it. But on the other hand, I also want to acknowledge that God is in control of all of this, or God is sovereign in all of this, and I think God's going to bring a lot of good out of this. This lockdown has been a thing that I think changed our minds about a lot of things, and I don't think the world's going to be the same afterwards. And a part of that's a good thing. So I think there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this situation, although there's also a lot of negative things that was caused by this lockdown, and we'll look into that as well. I just want to add here at this stage that there's a lot of prophecies that this thing is going to go away as quickly as it came, and that it might happen as soon as the end of April. Now, that's about 2 weeks from now. I'll keep on praying for it. I'll keep on trusting, and but time will tell. And if this virus doesn't go away, well, the fact is we're going to deal with this for quite a while, and we better find a way to deal with it effectively so that we can go on with our lives. I'm not criticizing our government. I'm not criticizing Cyril Ramaphosa. I think he is making the best decisions that he can with the information given to him by the experts, and he also has to follow what's happening in the rest of the world. About the extension of the lockdown, I felt on the one hand, in my natural man, I just felt, yes, this is not logical. I don't agree with it. But on the other hand, in my spirit, I felt quite at peace, and I knew that God still wants to do something in our heart, and I must just cultivate the peace in my heart, take this time and really invest it in spending more time with the Lord and praying for our country, because I think a lot of prayer that's been going up in this month, where everybody isn't so busy, might as well afterwards accelerate everything positively to the effect that it wouldn't have been in the natural if everything just went on like it did. So I'm not criticizing our government. I'll work according to the rules that they will lay down for us. Whether I agree with it or not is not the issue. The fact is we will make the best of what we can with what we have, actually where we are as well. Okay, now there's another principle, and that is the biblical principle for the end times, that the wheat and the tares grow together. Now, wheat and tares, when they start growing, they look similar. You can't see the difference between the two. But once they ripen, you can see that the one plant is different from the other one, and then you can do a separation. Now, the principle here is that Satan's got his kingdom, and he's doing certain things and establishing certain things. He is establishing his kingdom as well as he possibly can. But on the other hand, the wheat is God's kingdom being established. And Satan kind of makes a big noise when he establishes his kingdom. He uses the media, symbols, all kinds of things. And it seems like God works his doings in the quiet. And then suddenly everything just changes. And I think we're about to see a great move of God. And I believe that move of God will include a big harvest that's going to come in. Some of the prophets talk about billions of people coming to the Lord, and I think the Lord wants to prepare our hearts for that. And in that, we must see the positive of what's happening, and we must flow with that. Now, let's talk about the online thing versus being in class. Target Life is not an academic institution. We're a gap year. We use processes. We use the closeness of people together in terms of a positive peer pressure to motivate people to change. And the content of our course is not the focus. The content is important, but when I teach in class, the class determines actually what I'm going to say. So my lectures every year is very different, because I look them in the eye, I pick up in my spirit where they are at, and then the Holy Spirit will lead me to say certain things or emphasize certain things that I wouldn't have done maybe a previous year. So it's very difficult for me to just, I can take my camera and do a lot of my videos and just post it, and the people can watch it. Then the other problem, we don't promote to a next year. In other words, there's no kind of a consequence if somebody at home are not going to look at or watch these videos or do the assignments that we give. There's no way that we can actually control this thing or see to it that everybody participates in it. So our course is very intimate and relational, and it's actually the process that brings about the change, not the content, not the information. So at this stage, I'll rather hang on. We have given a Bible study, and I wonder how many of the students have done that already. So just case in point, it's a gap year. They want to rest, and if you don't motivate them, well, they're actually not going to do it. So for the moment, we're not going to revert to online things. I can post a lot of videos, or you can go to my Facebook and read a lot of videos that I've posted. Which is interesting, and you can gather some information that's spiritually, ideologically, politically, whatever, but I think we don't have to go there yet. So we'll see with the extension, maybe that'll change, but for the moment, we'll wait out the time. I just want to say that if we can get back to class the 4th of May, we've lost 4 weeks. Now, usually our winter term is not as packed as the first term, because we don't have camps, and the people kind of, it's a little bit tight. You need to give some space, and there's a lot of socials and outdoorish kind of things that we do that we can push to the afternoons or the evenings. And it's not difficult for us to shorten the whole second term with 2 weeks, and then we're already winning 2 weeks. Going 2 weeks into the June holiday as it would have been, I think the school is going to do that as well. Also gives us another 2 weeks so that we can catch up completely with everything that we've lost process-wise, not even just content-wise. There might be things like the forms that the students make. We might make that optional and not compulsory. Because obviously students, the working and getting the camp fees might also become a problem at this stage. With all the restaurants and everybody closed, we'll have to rethink all of that. So I think time is not our problem, money is more the problem. But I don't want to go there too quickly, because Miles Monroe said that if you worry, you're rehearsing a future that might not even happen, and I don't want to go there. So God's been good to us, and we've trusted Him so far, and so far He's provided for us, and I believe He will keep on providing. This, after all, is His ministry, not ours. Then when we come back from the journey, usually we give the students 2 weeks of holiday. We might as well give them only 1 week then, and then we can add another week to our curriculum there. And if need be, and there's more time lost, then we can go till the end of November instead of to the middle of November and win another 2 weeks. So I'm not so worried about the time. I'm more worried about camp fees coming in and parents that might have lost their jobs or their businesses paying class fees. And that would be a bigger problem. But let's trust the Lord to work that out for us. And then if need be, with the money, we might decide to say, for instance, leave out one of the camps. And I think I wouldn't want to give up the journey. If we have to give up something, in my mind at this stage, and I haven't discussed this with all the leaders, is Winkelspruit at the end of the year. We might supplement that one with something else creative that's not so expensive, because Winkelspruit is shorter than the journey, and it's not even as far, but it costs nearly as much as the journey. So we will look at that. The journey, obviously, we'll see about that if we will be allowed to go, but I believe we will. And then Shanine's family, they didn't go on the hike. We've already paid for the hike. We've already paid for the buses. Definitely you will be hiking this year. Probably around about September. We can go now, but I think it's getting too cold, and then it's not going to be a nice hike. If we wait later, just after the journey maybe, we can fit in the hike over there. And poor me, I'll have to walk the Fani Buta again this year. I'm really looking forward to it, and yes, so we'll definitely have that. And then so now the problem is, once class starts, what are we going to do? Because the communes are quite, there's up to 6 people sleeping in one room. Social distancing is virtually impossible. But let me tell you, when the kids go back to school, social distancing is a myth. It will not happen. How are you going to get primary school kids and even high school kids to not touch one another, play with one another, play their touch rugby and stuff during the break times? You will have to have a little bit of a police state there like we're having now, and you're just going to have so much confrontation. It's just not going to be worth it. It's not possible to keep the social distancing. At Target Life, we can move our classes to be outside as far as possible. But the thing is, we're running into our winter now. It's going to get cold in the mornings. And that will not always be possible, because we want to use media. We might put our projector and our sound system up outside somewhere there under the trees, and then put a screen up there and have class there. We can do that, and we probably will. But that's not going to solve our problem. Now, say for instance, we go on with class like for 2 weeks, and then suddenly somebody gets sick. We get them tested and say, okay, they've tested positive for corona. By that time, probably half of Target Life has been infected already. A lot of people don't get symptoms. They say for people about the age group of our students, and by the way, I'm the only person that's really at risk with the corona thing because of my age. But for young people, 50 to 80% of them won't even show any symptoms because of the childhood inoculations we got, the vaccinations we got. The prognosis for this whole thing in South Africa is much better than some of the other countries that didn't have that. So we can expect that fewer people is actually going to show symptoms in our country. And although we're going into our winter, we still have the whole thing in South Africa that we've got dry winter, so you can still spend time out in the sun, and that's also helpful. But the fact is, then we can start testing and find out, okay, half Target Life or whatever, are we going to go in a lockdown, shut Target Life again? What are we going to do about the communes? I just think when the students come back to Target Life, you must take into account that it might well be that this infection will hit target life and everybody will get it. Let's say that as a worst case scenario. Now, that can be a problem, or it can actually be a solution. I'm going to post you a link to a YouTube discussion by a virologist professor that says the best way to overcome this thing is to up your herd immunity. In other words, all the young people, all the people that are not at risk of dying of this thing, let them get it, because then they're immune, they're not spreading it anymore, and you kind of build a firewall that will ensure that other people don't get it. The frail people with other primary illnesses and so on, you need to look after them very well, because this illness does kill people. I've spoken to some medical doctors. They reckon it's not worse than any other flu, but we do see a lot of deaths, and obviously this thing is incredibly contagious, and it's obviously that the scientists are not even in agreement about all of this. So if the students come back to target life, there's absolutely no guarantee that they will not get the coronavirus, but I think it might be beneficial if we get it over and done with. If they didn't have the lockdowns in countries, we would have probably by now in most countries been over the worst of the infection, and 3-4 weeks later this thing would have been completely under control without the whole economy being totally damaged. I'm also posting a link of Davy Rood, the well-known economist, where he gives the case for the fact that the lockdown in South Africa, as far as it's gone already, is going to kill on the long term more people than the coronavirus would have killed if everybody got infected in the country. So already the cure is more damaging than the illness itself. And so that's my opinion. And but I have to look practically. If target life starts, what are we going to do? The communes are quite uptight. The other thing is they want to, let's say, for instance, grade 6 and 7 kids go back to school, but the younger kids must still stay at home. But now I've got 2 children. I've got one child going to grade 7, for instance, and the other one in grade 2. So the grade 7 picks up this virus at the school, doesn't get symptoms, bring it back home. We all fall ill. Why did we leave the younger one at home then? It just doesn't make sense. It just makes sense. Get everybody to school, everybody that is not vulnerable. If somebody's got other primary illness, keep them out of the system. I even heard that some mothers said they are going to keep their children at home this whole year. They can redo their year next year. I don't think they have the slightest clue of the psychological implications for a child being held back a year, how damaging that can be to them. The fact is, next year they get there, then they might get the corona, because this thing is going to be around like any other flu or a cold. And they talk about vaccinations, but that's a myth. The flu vaccinations are not very effective, because flu strains changes every year, and every year there's kind of new flus, and corona is one of them. It's not that the coronavirus is a new thing. This is just a new strain of it. And these things adapt themselves, and they change over the years. And but once you've had one of them, you kind of stay immune for the rest of your life, or for the biggest part. So even flu vaccinations is not very reliable, and I don't think that's gonna be the final answer. The final answer is the people must get the illness, get the immunity, and if we can keep the frail people out of the system until this whole thing is kind of under control, and then introduce them back, we might save a lot of them. Now, I just want to go to the stats a bit. Out of every 1,000 people at this stage, it looks like 20 of them will die worldwide. In South Africa, there will be less because of the inoculations, but it can be worse because of people with primary illnesses like hypertension and AIDS and tuberculosis and things like that. So especially the people in the townships with these illnesses are at the risk. Now, the lockdown was very good for South Africa in terms of slowing the coronavirus down, because once it hits a big township, I can't see how you're going to stop it, because social distancing there is not a possibility. If the herd immunity gets better in a country, then the death rate will come down. So, but for the first month, they say 20 people out of every 1,000 will die. Of that 20, only one between the ages of 20 and 40 will die. And of that one that will die, 90% of the one must have a pre-existing condition to die. It's highly unlikely that somebody contracting this illness at this age will die, but it can happen. And if it happens that somebody contracted the disease at Target Life and they die, it's just in our nature to blame, and the blame might come back to Target Life. In that sense, I think every parent is making a choice to send their child back to school, back to their gap year, back to university, whatever, in the knowledge that there is this possibility. I think it's really slim, but it's still there. Obviously, we will pray a lot about it for God's protection and everything. At this age group, they say 50 to 80% won't even show symptoms. That brings me to the next point, and I think the most important thing is to fight this illness is actually to have a good immune system. That's why for myself, I'm not afraid of this illness. If I get it, I think I will be fine, because I'm looking after my immune system at this stage. So what is the best thing that we can do in terms of getting our immune system in a good place? In the first place, you need to deal with fear, you need to deal with depression, broken relationships, and anything causing stress. Because stress activates a chemistry in your body that breaks down your immune system. Now let's just look for a moment at the pathology of this illness. What it does is it actually activates your immune system to overreact. So the people that get seriously ill, there's already been a problem with their immune system, and then their immune system, to compensate for this, goes in overdrive and starts causing inflammation in the lungs and things that are far more than necessary, and people actually die because of their own immune system attacking their own bodies. If your immune system is in a good state, you won't get symptoms, and if you get symptoms, they will not be harsh, and you'll get over the illness in 2 weeks max. The next thing is exercise. I'm also leaving you a link that shows what exercise does for your immune system, and I'm exercising very regularly. Then the other thing is to eat healthy. And the bad thing about eating healthy is you need to cut out sugar, because sugar makes our bodies acidic, and acidity lowers your immune system. And so if you can cut out on sugar and the fine or white starches, and eat more healthily, that will also help. And then the other thing is they found there's people with alternative medicine. I saw an article that they posted that 85 patients coming to them now, mostly old people, they would give the people a supplement of those vitamin A, D, C and iodine, and they had, out of 85 patients that came to them, none of them had to go to the hospital, and for most of them the illness was over very quickly. The other thing is, if we're in Target Life and we see somebody is getting symptoms, we'll take them to the doctor immediately and get the prescriptions of this hydroxychloroquine and the antibiotics and things that they put with it, because what that thing does, it suppresses your own immune system not to cause the inflammation in your body, and then you don't run into this difficulty in breathing, and your body can sort out this illness. So those medications definitely work, and they're not dangerous. I don't care what the media is saying. I think these things are quite, it's been in use for a long time, and a lot of you have been to Mozambique and places, you use that medicine anyway. The other thing is to take some omega oils, because they are also anti-inflammatory, and this way you can build up your body so that this illness is really not a danger for you. One thing you can keep on doing is worshipping and spending time in prayer, because I believe that worship also does something in your body that helps you to be more immune. If somebody has a precondition that makes them very, very vulnerable, then we need to talk about it. I thought of posting this video so that you can watch through it, and then you can come with your questions. You can WhatsApp your questions to me personally, or in voice note form, or in written form, or you can send us some emails, and we'll try to answer all the questions that you might have. If somebody's got some suggestions that they think this or that will work better. We have spoken as leaders, but we were kind of waiting for the government to make up their minds. Then we will get together and have a meeting, an internet meeting, and make final decisions about everything. If we go through a daily Gethsemane where I say, Lord, your will be done in my life, the Holy Spirit will empower us to be able to go through anything that comes our way with the peace of God in our hearts. And remember that this life is only a time of testing. The real reward lies in the afterlife, and also today in the relationship I have with God inside of myself. So be blessed and have a good time of working or resting or whatever you're doing for this next 2 weeks, and hopefully we will see one another after that. Goodbye.